So then we are back with more understandings from the Renewed Covenant, and this is from the Aramaic English translation of the word of Yahweh. He is the true Elohim. There is no other Elohim other than Himself. He is the Creator. He created the heavens and the earth. And regarding the situation with the world and what's going on, and nations and beliefs, there is only a belief, and He comes from Yahweh Himself, and He has chosen His set-apart people. And the time when He came as the Mashiach, He brought the first anointing for the second service, and this is where we are at. We are expecting the Hebrew brothers, the saved Hebrew brothers in the Mashiach, to return to their camps, because they must yet perfect the second service and resume their duties. This was explained by Yahweh Himself when He came in the form of the Son. He was the Mashiach Himself. So then when we read the area of the 20th chapter of Revelation, and this is from the Aramaic translation, this is the closest you can ever get from the Hebraic scriptures, and we understand Yohanan, he was not on the island of Patmos when he wrote Revelation. Visions are only given to those holy Hebraic saved in the Mashiach only when they are in the camps. Yohanan, he was not in the island. He was not in a cave in the island, and he did not write from the island. So the scriptures then, when you read Revelation, you must understand the situation is related with Yohanan receiving revelations in the mainland, in the camp. This is the distinction from having visions and dreams. Visions are only given when they are in their camps. Dreams they receive when they are outside of the camp. And who are these they? They are the set-apart believers. These are the Hebraic people. When they are outside of the camps, they receive dreams and they must be interpreted. When they are in their camps, then they have and they receive visions. Yohanan, he was in the mainland in a camp. Then he received the visions. So then when we read the 20th chapter in the 9th verse, you can find it very clearly. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and encircled the camps of the set-apart believers and the beloved city. The camps, these are then the second service camps. That's why we have Hebrews in the Renewed Covenant. The Renewed Covenant Megillah of the Hebrews. You will find the updates of the first service. So what is going on is there is a reduction of time from the time that the Mashiach spent with the Samaritans. Couple of days he spent with them, each day counted as 1,000, and the time of the end is being reduced, so then the Hebrews must return to their camps before the vengeance starts. It's very simple. And they will return to their camps. The situation is this: as long as it takes for them, or the longer it takes for them to return to their camps, the worse the world is going to get. It's a mathematical situation that we as inhabitants of the earth must make a decision. The longer it takes, the worse it gets. Because the prophecies of the Holy Yahweh must be taking place. And they are set in such a way that when the time comes, then the situation worsens itself, or the situations worsen themselves. The choice truly is ours, but the destruction also is ours. The destruction of the world and more civil war, more destruction, more war, it's because the time is coming for the returning of the Hebrew brothers to their camps. This is in order that can be changed. Cannot. Simply can't. The world is in itself changing so much because there is the final harvest coming. And the nations must be yet respected. Yahweh, the true Creator, He simply does not interfere with the nations of the world. He has His own kingdom to come government. And the saved Hebrew brothers in the Mashiach, in Yahweh Himself. Because Yeshua is Yahweh. Yahweh is our Yeshua. And He gave His government's teachings for He set apart people to teach the world. So the longer it takes for them to return, the worse the world is going to get. It's a mathematical equation, so to speak, that we can't change. And Yahweh, the true Creator, He wants to speak. But He must be through His camps. If we don't hear His word, then we don't know what to do. It's very simple. During the time of Shaliach Shaul, he was relinquishing people and then sending them to their camps. Sending them to their camps to be at the gates. Not to enter the camp, because only those that Yahweh Himself draws from the outside can be placed in a camp. But then we Goyim, we wait at the gate. So there is no truly reason for any synagogue or synagogues around the world. Those were abolished a long time ago. What does exist is the camp, or the camps, where then the tabernacle is in a camp. And there they resume then the second service. There is no reason for synagogues around the world. It was not mandated. Yahweh has no part in it. The only part that Yahweh is involved in is in the camps. Then He honors them. Honors them, the word honors, it is related with the completion of His own holy laws. He is not going to honor any person. Because when we come near Elohim, then we must humble ourselves. So the word then honor or honors or honoring is related with His own holy laws. Has no human interference in it, or human wanting the glory of it. It's absolutely out. But then we Goyim must expect then the saved Hebrew brothers then to give us the ministerings of Ruach HaKodesh. That's when, in quote, the church then is having this understanding, because church does not exist, never existed. What does exist is the second service from the first service, and those are in the camps. As during the time of Shaul, when he was relinquishing the people, he was sending them then near the camps. Go there at the camp, wait at the gate. However, when he started his ministry, there were not very many camps around that time. It was a time of a transition. So then later, at the end of his ministry, then you would find the camps around the world, as you can read in Yehuda. Yehuda is the perfect example, the people going on their way of forming another holy land. So church does not exist. Never existed. What does exist is the second service. The model from Moshe that came, he went to the mountain, he went up there, he spent some time with the Creator Yahweh himself, he brought the holy laws, they started the first service. Later, they received the promised land, they had a transfer of the tabernacle onto the promised land, and there they practiced for more than 1,000 years. Came Yahweh himself in the form of the Son. He brought the first anointing. Came Shavuot, the nearing line was set around the world. And then his people would make a transition from the first service and the second service, or should say best, from the first service to the second service. Because then the second service was then established. But it wasn't until the end of the ministry of Shaul, because there was a transitional time. By the time of Yohanan, when he was sent to the island, those camps, they were very popular. So then Yohanan, he was in a camp, protected, and there he had visions. If you read in the 10th chapter, the 10th verse, then you hear heaven speaking with Yohanan, stating, you must then go out yet and prophesy upon nations, kingdoms, princes, because he received the third role of vengeance. Vengeance was coming. And then Yohanan was feared greatly. But then, when he was then prophesying upon the nations, then the nations were afraid. And then Domitian, then the Roman emperor, was deadly afraid. And back in those days, those people, they had understandings from heaven, they were feared. However, those people being threatened, not by military, not by might, but by the presence of the Creator himself, Yahweh, in their lives, then those emperors, they thought that those people involved with the holy presence of Yahweh himself would come at any moment to take away their kingdom. So then Domitian ordered him to the island. From the island he never left. He died on the island. And he did not write any revelation from there. There he simply worked, then he was tortured, and he died. Because they wanted the power that Yohanan had. But it was a power of the kingdom to come, the relink and the vengeance. It was a holy, fearsome power. It was not a power of ability of manipulation. What the world is craving for is a power to manipulate, to lie, to cheat, to deceive, and to have more riches. The power Yohanan had, it was a holy anointing from heaven as a shaliach, and then the nations were afraid. He wrote Revelation, but he was in the mainland, protected in a camp. That's the only way a shaliach can have visions. Outside of the camps, always dreams. If you want an example, Pharaoh had dreams. Then Brother Joseph had to go there and explain them. Babylonian king also had dreams. And then Daniel, the brother, came over there and he interpreted them. And many others in the Holy Scriptures we can find Those people, they had dreams. Joseph, the stepfather of the Messiah, he had dreams. He was outside of the camp. Miriam, his mother, she had a dream, not a vision. So then when you read the understanding from Miriam, she had a vision of an angel. No, she did not have vision. She had a dream. She was outside of the camp. However, the angel himself then explained in her dream. It is consistent every time. That's why Yahweh said himself, He is Yahweh the true Elohim, and He changes not. He never did, and He won't change. Because when a person begins an understanding of who He is, it is solid every time. And the nations at the moment, they want words from the Creator Himself, but He only speaks through His camps. We have only 10% of the renewed covenant on writing. And we have 4 viewpoints of the relink, and it's lacking 90%. 490 days of ministry of Yahweh Yeshua, and we have only 10%. But then Shaliach Shaul said that at the end of the times, then the people would concoct for themselves teachers with itching ears, teaching the doctrines of demons. That's why we don't have the extra 90%. The holy Megillas, they were burned, destroyed, and what survived were then scandalized. And we must filter what we have and understand from the Torah and the prophets and the writings what Yahshua then, during the time that he was speaking with the Gentiles, and then Yahweh Yeshua when he was speaking with the set apart. So then we living serious lives for the Messiah, He is Yahweh Yeshua, the Creator Himself in person. It's truly scary when a person receives the true understanding of who he is. There were times where the Son was very evident. Every time there was the Torah involved, was the very Creator speaking. Very scary because He holds the future. So the Messiah is our only hope. And Yeshayahu states in the 61st chapter areas of restoration of then the second service, also Jerusalem or Zion. Zion was a dear word of Jerusalem. But then the conversion of the Gentiles of the nation of Israel is going to take place only when the saved Hebrews, they return to their camps and they resume the second service. What people understand today as church, it is simply the second service of the tabernacle of Moshe. In the future, they would then have the copy of the Holy Land perimeter, and then the tabernacle and the services as it was, but then with the update. And they would set the Holy Lands around the world. This is what it means, what we understand as church. So the whole world is truly deceived when they understand what church is. The word church does not exist. It was concocted. what does exist is the Holy Kadosh Kadoshim, or Holy of Holies, of each camp, of each tabernacle, and then the Gentiles outside of the camps are linked with the spiritual linking set in Shavuot. At the moment, the nearing line is contaminated with deceit. So the milk that comes from heaven, rather than going to the proper places, to the saved Gentiles, then is scoundrelized with a false anointing. But then revelation is coming, and whatsoever word Yahweh said must be done. It must be untwisted and must be placed in plain understanding, so then when he comes to do his part, vengeance is his and his alone. Then people are aware of. So the deceit is ending. There is no church outside of the camps of the Hebrews. If we like it, fine, best yet, and if we don't like it, so be it. The Creator won't change because people don't like the way He did, but He did what He did. And since He is the owner of the earth and of the universe, He has decided and no person can change it. Either we humble ourselves and then we are saved in the Mashiach, or then we are destined to die at the end. There is no going to heaven. Shaul was very specific. Whosoever is not obedient to the Mashiach, Gentiles in a level of the faith, that's why we have the renewed covenant. Then the set apart Hebrews in their camps, they have the entire understanding, the Torah, first service, and then the updated of the first service given in Hebrews. And they maintain the services in each of those tabernacles. And that's why then when you read the 20th chapter of Revelation, you understand. And then in the 6th chapter, you understand the souls that were linked with the nearing line, the spiritual nearing line, and then they saw in a vision from heaven to each of those Kadosh Kadoshims, they saw the souls of those people outside. They were under the altars. It is very profound, and the system works. However, there is no church outside of the camp. No ministries, no pastors, no teachers, no priests of any kind. Doesn't exist. What does exist is the second service of the tabernacle. The temple was a gift from Shlomo or Solomon. Yahweh did not mandate the temple. Yahweh wanted His tent, the tabernacle of visit. The tabernacle in the desert was then the model. Later was simply a transfer from the desert into the promised land. From there was the model that He would then have His presence around the world as holy camps. That's what He wanted. And this is what He wants. Other than this, then the world is lost. There is no direction. No countries have any direction. If people they have visions from heaven, is a lie. Always was. People have no experience with heaven. Only the holy prophets of old and also the Shilishim had experience in heaven, and the renewed covenant is closed. There is no visions from heaven anymore outside of the camp. It is ridiculous when people they have these crazy experiences thinking, oh, they saw heaven. No, they did not. They had a simple dream, no sense. Absolutely nonsense. Any kind of related understanding from the scriptures regarding the Hebraic understanding or the holy writings must have in a Hebraic person in the Mashiach saved and functioned. Must give it interpretation. And there is no relevancy of any person outside the camp these days coming up with the dreams that would be relevant to what's going on in the world. The most important is for the saved Hebrew brothers to return to their camps and resume the second service, because they themselves are only endowed with power from Ruach HaKodesh and the 7 administrations. Word of knowledge, word of wisdom, miracles, healings, prophecy, discerning of spirits, tongues, interpretation of tongues. Those are only functioned areas of the set apart holy Hebrews in the Mashiach, and they must be in their camps. So then when these function Hebrew brothers, they go out of their camps at the gate, they teach the Gentiles. The Gentiles, they don't pray. The Gentiles, they don't worship on their own. They simply read the renewed covenant. The worship must have a Hebrew brother around. And then prayer must be led by also the set apart Hebrew brother. Apart from these is purely lie. There is no vision from heaven outside of the camp. It must be made public and people must be aware of it. Yahweh has set His plan in motion ever since the time of Moshe, and it won't change. Revelation is coming, the weather is changing, indications are being shown to us. In the near future, revelation is going to come. And whatsoever Yahweh spoke must be done. It's very simple. And the problem is, nations, they want to hear from heaven. But where are the camps? We must have more camps. Each saved Hebrew brother must be in camps. Congregations of the Gentiles is another situation. They merely come together to congregate. They come to speak with each other. They don't preach over each other. They don't teach each other. They have no power from on high to do so. They don't forgive each other because they don't have power to forgive. But they encourage each other, remaining faithful in the Mashiach, and then set apart, they encourage each other to maintain the path of Yahweh. These areas were very familiar during the time of Shaul. There is no new teaching or new understanding in this. This was widely known during the time of the end of the ministry of Shaliach Shaul. Some people, they get mesmerized, for instance, because it is so contrary to what they have believed. No, Shaliach Shaul said at the end they would be deceived. That's why there is no church outside of the camp. There is only the second service and came from the first service. That's why you have Hebrews in the Word. Hebraic understanding of the Hebrews in the renewed covenant gives you the updates of then the service in the tabernacle. So then this whole situation of churches and denominations, and then pastors, teachers, evangelists, and then priests, and then miracle workers and prophets of their own, those are pure lies. They never existed. And Shaliach Shaul prophesied, stated in the future they would do such. Meant during the time of Shaul, the areas of regarding the set-apart believers in their camps were very popular, because he was making a couple of layers of understanding. He was introducing then salvation, the relink of the Gentiles. He was introducing then the second service, plus he was comparing then with the situation he observed in the spirit. He did understand what would take place in the future. So when people are not aware of there is no church outside of the camp, whoa, they get very, very, very startled. This was prophesied during the time of Shaul. Read from the Aramaic. It's black and white. Shaul was given the role of being a Shaliach. He was kingdom to come person, proclaimer, plus he was a relinker. Later, Yohanan had a third role of the vengeance, always related with the camp. The model from Moshe remained. Simply when Yahshua came, or should say Yahweh Yeshua, because Yahshua is only related with the Gentiles. When then the Mashiach came, Yahweh Yeshua, he brought the first anointing. The first anointing was then for them to exercise then the second service, each in their camps. Go therefore and make disciples. What he meant was, go therefore yourselves and set up holy lands around the world. The original manuscript from the time of the Mashiach stated he would go out in groups and forming holy lands. Understand, from the time of Moshe, Moshe brought the people out of Egypt. Then they became a nation. These very nation, they were trained to be shepherds. So from the same way they were brought from slavery, they themselves later in the future would then set up holy lands around the world and rescue the Gentiles from their own slavery of the world. This was the plan. So there is no place where in abrupt sense then the service was then cut. The services were never cut. There were simply transitions from the first to the second. And then the updates you find in Hebrews. If you want a sample of it, the 7th chapter of Hebrews, and then the 12th verse gives you the perfect understanding of it. But as there is a change in the priestly line, so also is there a change in the instructions of the Levites. Those were priests from the first to the second service. But then we must understand that the second service is done only in Hebrew, in the holy language of Hebrew, because the Creator has chosen so. It's His holy language, His set-apart people, and His holy laws. And He has endowed His set-apart believers that they would then function in His own spirits. 7 functions, 7 spirits of Elohim. It is clear, delineated, and separated, and perfectly in harmony with the Creator Himself. If people like it, fine. If people don't like it, so be it. There is no church outside of the camp. There is no Lord. Lord is a title. He is not the Creator. Lord is simply a title given to the British landowners for more than 1,000 years. It's not the name of the Creator. The name of the Creator is Yahweh, and He is the true Elohim. And the set apart, saved Hebrew brothers in the Mashiach must be in their camps, shepherding the Gentiles. That's the plan. There are no churches outside of the camps. The regular Bibles, the word Bible is pagan, came from Biblios, from another language. What there are Megillas, holy writings of the Holy Hebrews. Megillas. Those Megillas, then you find the understanding of the Creator Himself. It is truly scary what's coming out there in the future, because the nations are going to be dependent. The Creator Himself wants to direct them. And for some time they will. But we are waiting for more Hebrew brothers to return to their camps and then resume the second service. However, much later in the future, and won't be very long, in the 6th chapter of Revelation, then you can read at the end of the 6th chapter, the Gentiles are no more. There is a time in the history of the planet that we never experienced before. Vengeance. When the word is related with the judgment, it's not related with vengeance. There are present judgments, simple understandings of prophecies being then completed, versus then the true vengeance coming in the future. Vengeance we never experienced before. When there was sin during the time of Moshe, animals were used. Or then birds, depending on the problem or the sin involved. Then when He came, His presence via spoken words would then forgive. When vengeance comes, neither of them can be used. It's very scary. By the end of the 6th chapter, if you read it from the Aramaic, then the Gentiles are no more. The number of those faithful, faith, mercy, and grace are trades of Gentiles. After the 6th chapter, you won't find the Gentiles anymore. The Gentiles are gone. Only remains the camps and the beloved city. The rest of the world, they are in wrath. They are trying to destroy the camps and the beloved city. Thus the wrath of Elohim coming upon the disobedient. But then Shaul, the Shaliach, said at the end of time, people would not understand, their minds would not be able to grasp the understanding, clear understanding from the Creator Himself. Shaliach Shaul explained it. We can barely understand that there is no church outside of the camp. Imagine understanding then there are camps in the future in the 6th chapter of Revelation, and then Gentiles are no more. Gentiles are not set apart. Set apart are the Hebraic people. Those saved in the Mashiach, then practicing the second service. So then the most important point of understanding is, in this world we should not have synagogues. Synagogues should not exist. What should exist is then the set of camps around the world. Then the practicing of the second service in each camp. That's where they read the Torah and the prophets and the writings. And Elohim was very explicit, and he gave very distinct orders when he was in the earth. He told them to go around the world forming holy lands. He was giving samples when he was sending them 2 by 2s and then 7 by 7s. He was giving them samples what would be in the future. When Shavuot came, and the nearing line was set, what was the first function? Tongues. Tongues. People were then speaking in tongues. And then the column of fire that was there in Egypt, dividing the Egyptians and the Hebrews, was the same color, but column of fire that came down in a house of prayer, and then they were endowed with the power on high. And the first function was then tongues. They began to speak in other tongues. That's why when they went outside, the people began to understand in their own languages. And then the samples, then the Mashiach then showed them, was then starting. But then came the transitional time. By the time of the end of Shaliach Shaul's ministry, camps were very familiar and very popular. And then it went on until 1009. When 1009 came, was then the first 1,000 years that his people then ruled the spiritual world. Not the physical world, not the kingdoms of this world, but the spiritual world. Try to understand, we're speaking of layers of understanding. There is the layer of the spirit and the layer of the physical. They ruled in the spirit for more than 1,000 years. Then what went on was the tomb from where the Mashiach came from was destroyed. The world made a declaration they did not want the Mashiach anymore. So then Nahashtan the destroyer went to prison. But then Nahashtan the deceiver had taken over the nearing line. And that's why we have deceit. The church does not exist. It was a deceit ever since 1009. If you would believe in before 1009, you would find in the camps yet. But this is what is returning. The returning of the camps, because you read in Revelation, the camps are there. And then Yahweh in their camps, He is not going to interfere with the world. He simply is going to indicate what they should do if they come to them requiring some answers or inquiring of Himself. He's not going to interfere. The interference comes from people being disobedient using His holy words. This is the problem. Because we have Gentiles functioning in ministries that Yahweh never intended it, and then His own set-apart people involved with the trades of the world. Both of them scoundrels. Gentiles are not to be ministering, and then the set apart people not to be involved with the trades of the world.